say in Excel, I can work by macros and whatever, and move this a little bit over here, add some business functionality to it. Basically, Magnolia is a shrink-wrapped application as well, if you so want. They give you a release and they say take it or leave it, and you can then customize on top of it and move it more to a custom-built application. The life cycle of a shrink-wrapped application is usually some major release, Excel 2020. The customer buys this application for whatever reason. With Excel, we just have to buy this application. Otherwise, everybody gets mad at us because they can't complete the formats anymore. And then the customer basically is forced to adapt to that application. So, I mean, if you want to use Excel, you have to learn how to use it. That's pretty much it, right? They dictate how you use it. Yes, it's simple, and yes, but it changes, and you might not be happy with it, but you have to change with it. Otherwise, you can't use that application. And of course, Microsoft's risk is, if I don't make it so people like it, then they won't use Excel anymore, they switch to OpenOffice, for example. The life cycle of a custom-built application is a little different. We basically start building the application. We usually do like an early partial release, so business can see how it works, and then they start complaining about it, do some modifications with another final release, and now it's in the wild, and we call it 1.0, and business comes in and says, well, we need these changes because our customers now want this, and they really complain over here, so your application has to be changed. We go over to the application, change, we write the requirements, we go back to the build, we do a partial release, oh, it looks better, yeah, we're happy, we release, and one day afterwards, like, damn it, it doesn't look like it should look like, and you start over again. So, that's more of the life cycle I would see if I deal with a custom-built application, with a website, for example. There's one problem I really don't like, is usually if we build an application, we're done, development team disappears. Maybe you had some contractors, maybe you had some people in Guatemala or whatever, outsourced, and now these people are off the project because the project is done, right? So the contractors actually might just disappear. You also have to have new team members that are assigned to maintaining your project. Remember I said in the beginning, there's also the maintenance people that you have to consider. And now they're like, oh, yeah, there's this Java code, and I have to use Maven to build this, and I don't get it, and they try to play around with it. Maybe they are able to change it, but it's a lot of effort. And in our case here, maybe we build a new WAR file, and we deploy it to Tomcat, and it's not clear how to deploy it. Maybe there's good documentation, maybe there's bad documentation, but it's not, the maintenance is not that simple. And basically, so we go here, the development team has to be involved for small changes. You have to go for full releases because we can probably do some back-end integration, change the templates or whatever, so you have to redeploy the WAR file and some other tricks to do that. You have to really fully retest our applications. And maybe the resources that initially built this application have been drawn back into it, but that might be an event that you really don't like in the whole time, so you really want to do that in-house. Whatever. Again, the team that actually has to do these changes involves the developers. The lesson from that is don't forget the maintenance aspect. When you're building or architecting your applications, it's a really important part of your project. It's not, when you develop a project you forget it, but it's actually one of the most important parts for a non-shrink-wrapped application, because you want your application to survive in the future. You don't want to have a shelf life of like half a year or so, and then somebody comes in and says, let's rebuild it. You actually want this application to live for the next 5 years. At least I do, because that kind of makes me proud at the end of the day. When you have one application that's still used in 2000 or something like that. Right? It's a website. They still don't want to change it, so it makes me happy. Right? I still think it's good. What I've been talking about with maintenance and these different aspects is actually comes out of the Zachman framework. That is a guy that has an institute about how to run larger projects for any type of industry. You can build an airplane with that. In fact, Boeing does. You can build a website with this. And basically, here we have the different aspects which we could also go with people here, and we have different questions that have to be answered. And if you answer all the questions for all the people involved, then you actually have a more successful project. And basically down here is the maintenance that he says should be answered as well. And most of the approaches that you see today in books about how you should develop software usually just do part of this, but they never do the whole framework. So it's kind of sad, but this technology has been around since the 70s or 80s, before I could read or something like that. It should be used more. In content management systems or web content management, what's Magnolia called now? WCM or CMS? It's WCM. WCM? All right, the WCM. So in the WCM, well, I have to ask. Actually, the whole use case of the maintenance has been solved for building websites, right? Because before we had content management systems, we were slaves to the website designers. So they put up a website, and then the business came like, well, you've got the comma there, and this picture really is not the way you want it, and it doesn't give you the right marketing message. So people said, well, it would be cool to be actually to change it on the fly and take the developer out of it, take the release cycle out of it, take that whole other company that deals with it out of the whole process. So in the WCM or CMS, the developer is not involved in production changes anymore, except if there's larger changes. The user can make changes himself, so actually the business user goes in, changes the content, the marketing person goes in, edits something, and we can actually react fast to the business needs without the burden of full development. Let's see how Magnolia 4, before Magnolia 4 actually deals with that. So here we can say content changes, the user can do that, we don't need a full release. Design changes, the user cannot do design changes in before 3.6 or whatever. It involves the designer and the developer, and we're going to go for a full release because we have to update the WAR files on the server. Functionality changes in the backend, say we have some weird module in there that allows you to sign up for an insurance. Basically, that usually involves a developer and a designer, and usually also triggers a full release because we have a lot of business logic that has to be uploaded. Magnolia after 4.0 Plus with the SDK, actually content changes can be done by the user. We don't need a full release, we still have that, right? The design changes can be done by the user or the designer if they're smaller, right? Suddenly everything is in the repository, and we don't have to have a full release cycle for that. It's actually just activated. And by release cycle, I always mean deploying a new WAR file, actually taking the server down, having to notify all your customers that you're actually doing something on it, right? So the more heavy process, building full testing and things like that. Minor functionality changes probably can be done by the user, developer or the designer. For example, in Magnolia 4 with the SDK, we can build nice forms that help us deal with if I want to do a survey or something like that, or send an email. So I can do that in the repository, I can deploy it. I don't have to do a full release cycle. And the functionality changes again, that is still the one that actually needs the full release cycle. So we actually moved with Magnolia from Magnolia 3, 6 to 4. We moved a lot of things into Magnolia. I'm not Magnolia, but it's more on this side. It's more, wow, maintenance is getting easier. It's actually good, right? It's easier for the future. The advantages are it's very flexible, it's inexpensive for most of support things, it's inexpensive and fast. It has a fast release. Disadvantages, some user can mess up the site, right? They mess up the form, that triggers something else, and whatever. You still have to do some testing there. Automated testing is great for that kind of things, but you can actually mess up most of this. And then the question really is, why the heck don't we do that for application development as well? And if you go for the definition of a content management system, I stole it somewhere, Substack, whatever, some paper about content management system. A content management system, CMS, supports the creation, management, distribution, and publishing of corporate information. It covers the complete life cycle of the pages on your site, from providing simple tools to create the content through the publishing, and finally to archiving. It also provides the ability to manage the structural layout of the site, the appearance of the published pages, and the navigation provided to the user. Kind of bold statement, right? So, our today's websites are actually also business applications. It's still a website, right? It's why are we forcing the application in our website somewhere else? When we read the definition, it says your website, right? So why are we separating those things? Why are we not moving those together? Then my definition will be a CMS-driven application is an application that includes as many steps as possible in the content part while having the logical part as a base. This allows the easy changes in maintenance. So as we had before, Magnolia moved from 3.6 to 4 to more things that are easy to be managed in the content repository. Why don't we move more of our application that we run with Magnolia into the content management as well, and actually keep that there? 4 is your maintenance. And in fact, if you think about it, Magnolia is actually an application like that. Because most of things in Magnolia are in the content repository, your dialogues, your paragraph definitions, all these kind of things is in the content repository. So I actually would call Magnolia itself as a CMS-driven application, because it's right there. So why don't we build our applications more than how Magnolia is building? Because we're building Magnolia anyhow. So what kind of effect does that have? It forces the team to build more modular applications. If you look at Magnolia, the whole dialogue handling is very generic. It can be used for any types of paragraphs. It can be used for for anything that we want to build in Magnolia. So it's generic, the reuse is great, right? And the other thing is, it kind of makes our team to actually use Magnolia itself to build its applications. So they're already configured their dialogues in the content management system. Why don't they just configure their application in the content management system as well? Because then once we come to maintenance, they can just change the configuration a little bit and it actually still runs. That's what we just said, right? And basically, the benefit of that is the changes can be made easily together with the business people. You can sit at one computer.
So one question. To make this a bit more concrete.
Yeah.
You're talking about like Java code in the repository. Is that what you're
No, I'm not.
Okay.
I'm not. I'm actually saying, like, if you look at Magnolia itself, if there is no Java code in the repository, right? There's configuration in the repository on how to run your Java code. And what I'm saying is, if we can get people to write more modules that allow us to, that has Java code in it, that are configured in the content repository to drive our applications, And we can use a similar way to build business applications, and we have the similar benefits that we have in maintenance today with websites and application building as well. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
All right. Sorry. Basically, it's just for easier maintenance cycle. And it's actually less to build. The other side of building on top of Magnolia that we see as an advantage is there's less to build. So in today's enterprise world, if I have to write an application that, like one example is where every time you see Simpsons on TV, there's somebody that gets some money from it, right? So there's this business application that allows you to say which TV station at which moment showed which Simpson episodes, and therefore the Simpsons people get this money, right? So the application that they build is very insecure. They open it to others' TV station, and TV stations can go see like how much money do the others pay for it, or whatever. But if you build on Magnolia, you actually get the security for free. You get web caching for free because they actually did a lot of work in that area. You get the deployment activation flow for free. That's why we say it's less risk of having major security flaws in your applications. And the developers can actually focus on business logic more and build more useful components. Because they're all driven from the configuration. Magnolia is a very reusable application, right? And I still have time. 15 minutes. 15 minutes? Wow, okay. Good. So you heard a lot of talk from me that doesn't make much sense, right? You have a lot of questions. A good example for that could be today, like Ruby on Rails has this great CRUD, right? Where you, so I take the database and instantiate it and whatever, and it does this magic, and then I have a web application, right? Everybody loves that because it's less code to write and it's easy. Well, actually, you can do the same thing in Magnolia as well. In fact, we have a couple applications that are built fully on Magnolia. For example, if you're a Swiss person living in America and you want to reconnect back to Switzerland, there's a website called swissroots.org. It's a full membership site with blogs and whatever, upload of images. And it's fully built this way. It's actually any screen that you have, any form that's there, is fully in the content management system. The validation, all this kind of thing is fully in the content management system. You can drive it out of configuration and there's no code anymore. Because most of the things, there's a form handler that does all this magic and do all these Ajax things that are really pretty and everybody likes. But all the configuration for it is in the repository. Even actually data storage is in the repository. So that can be easily built on top of it. And in fact, it's actually faster to build that way. Because once you have that module, writing any application with CRUD, it's really simple. Because you have an example, but it doesn't show well on those small screens. So, there is. It doesn't load well on small screens, but basically this is our inline form editing, where it's just a string. It's not the little laptops that don't have that good of a resolution. But this is a full form editing that you can actually then tie to the repository to store data, to a database to store the data and read it from them. So now that the user actually basically drags and drops components on here. In fact, if I want to show that, so I want another combo box here, then I just drag and drop it on here, and boom, I have it, right? So it's really too small.
Do you connect it to a database or something?
Yeah, we actually do either connect to a database or we do connect to the repository, so we just have different connectors. We still implement the actions for it, right? So the developer actually goes out and implements all these actions, but then the user, his main concern usually is like, well, yeah, but I don't like this account name here, and I really want that different, or the fields should be organized differently. So now I can just go in, drag and drop, and change the stuff. It's built on XJS in this case. I just have the XJS source code here as well in Magnolia, so I could do some modifications on the fly. But it's basically the same concept as the technical people had this morning, where they were saying like, yeah, we use Portlet or we use structs or Wicked or whatever we integrate. And we just take it a step further, we just move the whole configuration of anything formed for our modules into Magnolia, whatever makes sense. We're building more business application in forms, so our focus, of course, is in forms. Right? So
what you're saying is you create this and make it blue, you can change colors to pink and
exactly.
drag in anything you want, but then if I hit the submit button on the live side, it would probably break because I would have to do the controller.
Well, no, not really, because it's very generic.
Okay.
So, and XJS has form handling in it as well already, right? So you have validation and things like that. And then we use the same validation on the server side. We basically have here, what I see that here? Oh, it's the wrong side. But basically we can configure where to store it into the repository.
Right, but if I'm missing, if I take out the primary key or something, it will break.
Of course, you can, as with the forms in Magnolia right now, or with the dialogues, you can break it if you mess too much, right? But for example, we have an insurance, I shouldn't say that has the whole application process in America, where you sign up for an insurance. It's all built that way, right? So anything that they do, even like changes in price, is in Magnolia configured. And they basically go in and do it all themselves. Or they call us and say, can you do it? And we do it for 5 minutes and charge them 5 minutes. No, but this makes it very easy and very simple to actually produce, right? We have to deal with a lot of forms with our customers. So building a site with 50 pages with just forms on it is actually quick. It's like a 2-week task, right? Where in other more traditional building was more cumbersome. The customer didn't like how it looked like, things like that. Right? Because it's customer-facing things, marketing is always involved, and I get crazy about. I don't know. I mean, if I take the basic Magnolia form module, I can only build 1-column forms, right? But now customers really like multi-column forms, and they want collapsible sections and things like that. They want checks in it, so if I upload a file, it actually just goes to the server right there. It doesn't wait till I submit at the end, and all this kind of things. So instead of using some other framework and rendering, having the forms in there, we actually tend to do a meta language to render the form to the screen, and then have a handler to actually store it somewhere so fits our interface. And of course, if the actions are too out of whack, then some developer has to go in and change it. It depends on the complexity. We try to bring it closer to the user to actually make changes. So pretty much. That's just what I said. It's very popular. And broken. So like one of the insurances is Costco. So there's 200 to 300 people a week that actually buy insurance over Magnolia website that's maintained by the customer, and if they have some more new regulation that comes in, they just do it. Swiss Roads is one, it's a full community side. We're working in open enrollment, that's very American specific. That's in America, you've probably heard people, companies give you health insurance, right? Because that's kind of, you go to work for a company, so you have insurance. And then people choose whatever they want to sign up. So we're actually building a custom open enrollment platform in Magnolia that then, for the next customer that has other plans or different needs for the insurance to sign up, you just drag and drop the stuff on the screen and you're done and released, right? Plus you get the benefit of it looks good and you can customize the design so it actually looks like the customer's website. Any questions?
Did you apply to any other, so you have the scrub things, but our first when you said it,
We apply it to other things. We apply it, for example, to PDF creation. In an insurance, after you actually filled out the 5,000 pages about every of your sickness, you can print a PDF, right? So the PDF is in a module. It's the content that we have from the forms, from the CRUD, is actually then rendered into a PDF, and it's configuration. If they change a page, right, we just change with it, we change the configurations in our release. Same with rating. So about a year, they decide that they need more money for the insurance, right? So we built a module that can calculate insurances, and you just stick that new module in. You actually upload a new rate version for that. Based on the effective date, you drive another rate version out of it. And same for the values that actually have to go into the rating might have changed. Maybe now it's my favorite. Pap smear is not required anymore. So basically, then it's just a mapping, right? Whatever the CRUD built up and stored for this person is then mapped to the rating, and the rating is mapped back so it can be used in the application. So really the idea is to build as many modules as possible, because every module you build that's configurable on the other side is actually something you don't have to rewrite. Or maybe you have to adapt it a little bit.
And did you ever do anything what we run into every now and then is that you have one basic form where the user has to fill out whatever they have to fill out, but it's different for different groups of users.
Conditional?
Conditional,
Yeah, actually, we do that in our, we have, I call it CRUD here, but we have this multi-step form module. Really, it's like 60 or 70 pages that you have to fill out, and the paragraphs are actually based whether they're enabled or disabled based on other fields. I know if you're able to go there. Let's see. We have some internet connection here. So let's go to my log. It's just so this is the site, for example. So this is a basic Magnolia, right? And in here, this is that paragraph that's running from the CRUD. And if I, for example, say, I have a Costco connection, that's where I heard about it, there is a new field that shows up, right? If I go down here and say child only, then boom, we have the other fields that show up. So that's all conditional, and not only for one screen, but all the screens throughout the application. And we have different approaches to that. We can tend to play with it. We have to figure out how to do it as well. I think this one here is using just small JavaScript that get everything exposed to it, can do validation and control. Same for the PDF, right? The PDF render has to do this evaluation as well, whether for whatever reason, right? It's conditional, this has to be printed, this doesn't have to be printed. Our message, this site here, the first version they built, they took like half a year to actually build it, and the customer wasn't happy. And we took Magnolia, wrote actually a form hand before it, and redeveloped all the screens within a couple of weeks. But it's more because, like, so the one developer really focused on, I just want to do some form rendering, and then the other developers, once there's basic form rendering, just started creating these forms that were necessary, right? But then creating forms doesn't really take much. So we hired 2 interns to help us with that, right, for 2 months, and they were just slamming together, right? So boom, here's the first release, and there we go. It's also nice for prototyping, because I can actually use this with the customer to prototype the initial solution. Form builder, go on the screen, do all the stuff, right? They like it. Oh no, I want to move this around, and then I can start doing the implementation. Again, my message, go to modules, and once you wrote the module, try to open source it. We're actually trying to open source the form render as well.
Okay.
So that's...
You're trying.
Well,
you haven't done it yet?
No, we haven't done it yet, because we were kind of waiting on what's the Magnolia 5 UI framework, where everything on the go, right? So, because we want to write that for 5 and not for 4. We write it for 4 for us, but and for 3.6, but I would like to be part of the Power 5 application. So that's why I used XJS, right? Because that was one of the options that could be. So we went to inline templating for stuff, and then the edit box for the rest. Because I feel that would be a good way to do that. We still have some issues with the standard templating kit and working together with it. So it's not really easy. That's it. I think I use my time, right?
Yeah.
Open the windows.